Hi everyone. I did a study on the association of child poverty, brain development, and academic achievement. It was a study that took place in 2015 by Hare and others. And so, yeah, we'll just get right into it. So, basically, we all kind of know that children living in poverty is a social issue. In this study, they wanted to see how brain development and poverty impact academic performance. So they thought and believed that low academia progressing is challenging to adulthoods, meaning that if everyone has um, people living in poverty have low academic scores, that later on it will carry into their career and leading to other things that they have issues with. So they focused on gray matter tissue of various parts of the brain likely vulnerable to early environments. The parts of the brain they used were the temporal lobe, the frontal lobe, and the hippocampus. They used the temporal lobe because it's associated with memory, language, and comprehension. Then they used the frontal lobe because it's associated with attention, inhibition, emotion, and complex learning. And then they also use the hippocampus because it's related to spatial and contextual information and long term memory. They used gray matter because it follows a nonlinear development by seeing if it was larger or smaller than others in the same age. So they would use a group of people. They wanted to see how it was different in their age when they compare that gray matter. So the statistical method, they did a longitudinal cohort using magnetic resonance imaging scans. They took 389 children and adolescents ages 4 to 22. They followed a regression model, and the data collection began in 2001 and ended in 2007. In the study, 1/4 of the sample households reported that the income was below 200% of the federal poverty level. Um, and this was a main factor in the study, as we'll see later in this presentation. They also used two tests to measure IQ. The first one, the WASI, WASI, helps measure IQ levels, and the Woodcock Johnson three tests of achievement helps with language and math achievement. So all three of these combined were what they used to look at the gray matter and the tests over the period between 2001 and 2007. So the main findings, they found that children that were 1.5 times below the federal poverty level were 3 to 4 percentage points below the development norm. And they used the p-value 0.05 to compare this. There was another gap with 8 to 10 percentage points below the FPL, so that was another factor in it. And then for standardized tests, so those basic tests you take in high school and all the way through elementary school and above, low income households scored 4 to 7 points lower, meaning that 20% of the gap in test scores could be explained by lags in the frontal and temporal lobes. And that percentage is statistically could be a big number because if you think about it, that's a lag in the frontal and temporal lobe, meaning there is that issue that they were seeing and hypothesized. So just here is one of the tables that was in the study, and as you can see, it has the total gray matter, the frontal gray matter, temporal hippocampus, and it uses beta to represent it. In this part, they do also use the numbers to make it look like it's below 200% of the models. Like if you look on the left-hand side, it says the models for each, and it talks about what the percentage looks like for each federal poverty level. And yes, so that's just a quick example of what different tables I was looking at as I was going through this study. So discussing this, descriptive statistics played a role in the variables that influence a child. Sex was one issue that they were looking at. The WASI score, the income level, the gray matter, all played a role in this study. There's other characteristics that help with this. The mean age, the birth weight, the education level, and IQ scores were also used in this study to help look at the comparison between each age and gender, and yeah. So just like the previous diagram you saw, so there was a range in poverty, so they were able to see at different levels of poverty that were the poverty levels were all very low, but they were still looking at the various percentages compared to gray matter. So evaluation and conclusion, the hypothesis and findings relate quite well. Authors did indeed hypothesize that low income was associated with lower WASI and WJ3 test scores. So that means they predicted that this might be the case. Going off of that, though, there are limitations to this study. Genetic predisposition that have let a person become poor. This can mean, are they predisposed from things like drug use, or was their mother's drinking alcohol? So this is a limitation of how a person became poor. Another thing is the representation of the sample may have been disproportionate, and that was something that really surprised me when I saw, was that children in this sample were the higher end of the poor spectrum. So I mean that there's probably other children that were more poor than them, that if they were studied would have um, even more of a difference in gray matter compared to these children, because these children were better off in poverty than others. So how can the study be furthered? Was a question I asked. There's age limits. So in this, there was an ages 4 to 22. I wonder, when the brain is fully developed, how that gray matter looks compared to someone in their mid-20s, when we have that peak of development. And of course, social work, the reason we're all here. So practice relevance, social workers work with a variety of people. So that means that you may, my peers and I may be put in situations where we're working with children, people in poverty, homelessness, and that just means that children need resources for education. This study helps show that academics and poverty go hand in hand, and that if there's not the right sources for them, it could impact them in the long run. So I suggest implementing programs for children that give them the resources. This could be in programs, shelters, schools, and that overall children do not have control of their situation. So social workers need to be the voice for them. They need to help them figure out what's going on in their life, and yeah, so we're the voice for them. So that was the reference I used. Thank you.